Good afternoon and welcome to the Chatham Select Board, May 18th, 2021 meeting. It is 5:30 and this is remote participation only. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify me. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 134208476#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So please mute your audio until the proper time to speak, and also in order for us to have a more meaningful exchange with you at the time you are speaking, and if you're able, please activate your camera. At any other time, if you walk away from your computer, please disable the video. Thank you very much. So we are going to take a roll call of the Select Board, and we'll start with Board Member Kokolas.
Present.
Board Member Metters.
Present.
Board Member Nicastro.
Present.
Board Member Dykens.
Present.
And the chair is present, so we have a full complement tonight. All right, so we have 2 meeting minutes to approve this evening, May 4th, 2021 and May 11th, 2021. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 4th, 2021? Motion? Second?
Second.
Okay, I hope somebody got that. Are there any edits, substantive edits to the meeting minutes? Dean?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I have one on page 2 under the public announcements, the third paragraph where it says Select Board Clerk Corey Metters requested, this has to do with the public comments on the Kroll Road. I'd like to insert after Corey's last name, comma, joined in by Select Board Member Dean Nicastro, comma. As I recall, I joined in by Select Board Member Dean Nicastro. So I think that reflects what actually happened at that meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, if we don't have any other, we'll take a vote to approve them. We're voting to approve the meeting minutes of May 4th, 2021. Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Okay, I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 11th, 2021.
So moved.
So moved, Peter.
Okay, how about a second?
Second, Jeff.
Okay. Do we have any edits?
No.
None. Okay, great. All right, we'll take a roll call to approve. Let's see. Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
The chair says aye. So meeting minutes of May 11th have been approved 5-0. Next is public announcements and agenda item requests. Do any of the board members have any this evening? Corey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item I'd like to just bring to the attention, obviously there's a lot of changes that had occurred yesterday with mask and capacities and parade discussions. Our Independence Day Parade Committee will be meeting this Friday, 6 o'clock virtually. It was scheduled previously, but they are going to talk about the parade and the changes that have occurred and probably provide a updated recommendation back to the board for next Tuesday. And it is my understanding that we will be putting on our agenda next Tuesday a discussion on the parade, so we can, obviously discuss the recommendation from the parade committee, get public input from citizens, merchants, whomever wants to weigh in on the topic. And the second item I want to bring up for is, the time of year we're getting our volunteers who serve on our various boards and committees, some of who have decided that they will not be seeking reappointment coming next month. And anyone interested in serving any of our boards and committees, there are multiple openings on multiple boards. Please go onto our website. Consider filling out a talent form because we are always in need of volunteers. And I want to highlight two particular committees that I'm the liaison to. One being the Independence Day Parade Committee, because there are a couple openings on the committee. There have been for a while. So for those who are passionate about our parade, this would be a great time to, volunteer, see what the parade committee does, see what the mechanics are in putting a parade together. So there are openings, and the committee would welcome any willing hands. And the second committee is our Cultural Council, because several members have decided not to seek reappointment. So their numbers are dwindling to a point where it's going to be very difficult for them to function at their current quorum requirements after June, basically. Hopefully people will be willing to step up and serve the committee, or we're going to have to look at other arrangements for quorum considerations, et cetera. So there's plenty of opportunity to serve this community. And if anyone has an interest, please go on our website, look for the openings on the committees, and just consider filling out a talent form. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. I just want to say the Cultural Council, I served as liaison. It's fun. You get to overview art projects and decide on money going towards really fun projects in Chatham and collaboratives around the Cape. So it's not a heavy lift. It's a really interesting, fun committee. All right, before I get to the general public, Dean has his hand up. Dean?
I think Jeff was ahead of me. Okay.
I don't see Jeff's.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what Corey said and mention a particular committee to which I'm liaison, and that's the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, which will have an opening. A long-time member who's actually on with us tonight, Chuck Bartlett, whose current chair, is not seeking reappointment after many years of great service. So there is an opening, and we could use an applicant or two for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Jeff, I don't see your hand up. Did you have your hand up?
I did not, but I just say Shauna sent out a great list today, and that would be good maybe to post somewhere.
Yeah.
I put it on the website. It's a
Okay,
great
great.
list. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So any staff have any public announcements? No? Okay. All right. Our remote participations, please raise your hand or speak out. I see two that have their hand out now. One is Stephen Buckley. Welcome, Stephen.
Okay, thank you. This is an agenda request. It may already be one. So, but because of the governor's announcement that coming out of a state of an emergency, I guess May 29th, I think, or thereabouts, I'm wondering what, if any, plans there are, and perhaps there should be an agenda request addressing remote participation. I noticed that another Cape town has had in-person with the Board of Selectmen, but remote as a hybrid way of doing it. But anyway, now that we have some notice that things may change, and it may not be legal to do what we're doing today in a couple of weeks. So anyway, I think that should be an agenda request, preferably before things happen, be a little proactive in that sense.
Thanks. We're probably going to get a little bit of an update from the COVID response team, Stephen, but the state of emergency ends on the 15th of June, not the 29th. The mandates end on the 29th. So a little breathing room, and I think there is some state legislation that's sort of coming our way in regard to that. So good question. I did thank you very much. I did see that Sarah Griscom had her hand up, but I don't see her now. So Sarah?
I'm right here. Yep.
Go ahead, Sarah.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have an announcement, and it's a public service announcement, basically. It's a Zoom talk that's going to take place this Saturday morning at 10:30. The title of the talk is Protecting Chatham's Climate Resilience. And we've got some great speakers lined up. We've got Kristen Andrus, Monomoy High School students, Christy Beckley, Uni Burley, Amanda Davis, Dee Dee Holt, and Jeff Mason, and myself. And if you want to get yourself on that Zoom call on Saturday morning, go to Chatham Climate Action Network. Put that in your Google. Thank you. Any
Right,
questions?
Thank you, Sarah. No, we're good. Okay, any other questions, any other public announcements from the remote participants? Okay, all right. So we will move on and we will go to our business, our new business, which is a coronavirus COVID update. We're going to have tonight on, we are slated to have Dr. Duncanson, our finance director, Alex Halela, and our town manager, Jill Goldsmith. So I guess we'll turn it over to Dr. Bob and say welcome.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. You kind of threw me for a loop because I thought you were going to run through quickly the rest of the agenda so people knew what was coming on.
Phew, right over my head tonight.
Well, if you want to, go ahead.
Well, nope, that's okay. We'll wing
okay.
it.
All right. So quickly for tonight's COVID update, because I'll quickly run through the numbers because there has been a lot of other information that came out yesterday. So as of this afternoon, in Barnstable County, we have 13,804 COVID-19 cases, and that's cumulative since the pandemic began, basically in March of 2020. And today's number is an increase of 12 over the previous day. And just to put it in context, back a week ago at your board meeting, we had 13,719 cases. So we've gone up 85 cases in the past week, which is a substantial shift from where we were, a month, 2 months ago when we were basically seeing, over 85 cases in a day. So things are definitely improving at the county level. We are currently at 466 deaths cumulatively in Barnstable County. That is an increase of 1 since the previous day and an increase of 3 since last week. So again, that is a substantial improvement over conditions earlier this year and, in the latter part of last year when we were seeing, deaths in, the 10s, 12s, 15s on a daily basis. And now we're not even seeing 1 death a day, which is obviously great news. In Chatham itself, we are currently at 323 cases, and that's again cumulative since January 1 of 2020. And that is an increase, I should say that is, we have currently 1 active case in Chatham, and we've had a total of 3 cases so far in May of this year. So that in and of itself is also a substantial decrease. So let me share my screen here and I will show you some graphics. So hopefully everyone can see this is our monthly graphic of number of cases and number of cases resolved since the pandemic began. You can see the huge spike that we had at the beginning of this year and how it's gradually tailed off. We had that other small spike in March of this year, primarily related to the COVID-19 variants, the Brazilian variant that hit, the Mid-Cape area pretty hard, but then we've been dropping off fairly substantially. And right now we are basically on a par with where we were in May of 2020. So, again, we've been seeing great improvement over the last month to 6 weeks or so, and hopefully that trend is going to continue. In terms of the new cases, and if you remember, I used to show the age demographic of the cases in Chatham, but with so few cases, and now they're pretty well spread out across all the various age groups. In the last couple of weeks, I've been kind of showing the statewide 2-week average of cases, and this is the past 2 weeks. So this data is as of last Thursday for the preceding 2 weeks. And I show this now just to kind of highlight the shift in the demographics, where now the 2 highest groups are the 20 to 29-year-old and the 30 to 39-year-old. If you remember back last summer and last fall and even into this year, It was really the older age demographics, the 70 and above, that we saw the majority of cases, and now they have dropped off to really, on a statewide basis, to being less than 2% or around 2% of the cases. And we've seen this definite shift in the demographic to the younger folks. We're also seeing more cases in even younger, the less than 19-year-olds. And that, is just a reflection of the fact that we're able to pick them out more, because we have less cases in the older demographic. So, but for the last couple of weeks now, we've seen that kind of 20 to 39-year-old age demographics is really being the majority of all the cases in the Commonwealth. In Chatham, it's a little bit more spread out, but again, with only 3 cases this month, it doesn't really matter where any particular case is in the age demographic. They're pretty well spread out. And then our average daily incident rate, again, this is data from last Thursday, which is, basically a week old, but we're seeing a positive trend. We're way down where we were compared to where we were. And it's been level the last couple of weeks. Chatham does remain in the gray zone. We've been in the gray zone for 4 weeks now. And if everybody remembers, the state basically has 3 colored classifications, gray being the lowest, red being the highest. We were up in the red zone for a couple of weeks there at the beginning of the year. And then we dropped and we spiked a little bit again. And now we've been in the gray zone for several weeks with a percent positivity in Chatham of 1.7%. Barnstable County, as of last Thursday, was at 2.3%, which was also a drop from the previous week. Statewide, the percent positivity was at 1.5%, and that's about where it's been on a 7-day average as well, with the data that just came out this afternoon around 5 o'clock. So all, again, indicators that, I hate to say the pandemic is not over, but it's definitely much more under control than we saw, last spring, last summer, last fall. And it's a real testament to people getting their vaccine and doing what they need to do, wearing their masks and whatnot. And then the final graphic that I just wanted to show, this is our vaccine percentage of Chatham residents. And like in previous weeks, I show 2 weeks. So the upper graph is the most recent as of last Thursday. The data is as of last Tuesday, because when it comes out on Thursdays, it's always for the preceding Tuesday. So, now the data is basically a week old, but we won't get new data until Thursday. And then the bottom graph is the one from the previous week. And just so you can show how things continue to improve as we go through here, with the exception of the 75 and older demographic, which were basically, for all intents and purposes, are 100% vaccinated. The only shift we're really seeing there is a greater majority of the people are now fully vaccinated as opposed to partially vaccinated. But in the other age groups, we see steady improvement in the total number of people either partially or fully vaccinated. And we also, in the older demographics, we're seeing that shift to more people being fully vaccinated, given that they were the first groups to be eligible. And so the longest period of time has passed for them, in terms of you're not fully vaccinated until 2 weeks have passed after, in the case of Pfizer or Moderna, your second dose, which by themselves are 3 to 4 weeks apart. So an individual getting a first dose of, say, Pfizer wouldn't be considered fully vaccinated until like 6 weeks have passed. And so that's why now we're seeing that greater shift to more people slipping into the fully vaccinated category. And I think the other good thing is that we're seeing in the youngest demographic, the 0 to 19-year-olds, we are now seeing some individuals in that group being fully vaccinated, considering that, we've had the 18 years and older group, and then recently the vaccine was just opened up to the 12 to 15-year-olds. So they're really just at the beginning of their vaccination voyage, if you will. So all these continue to point to good control of the virus and, improvements coming along. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And let me just touch on a couple of other things because there has been a lot of news that the chair alluded to earlier with the governor's announcements yesterday. I think we were all maybe a little bit surprised that things changed as dramatically as they did yesterday at the state level, considering the previous word was, Massachusetts was going to reopen on August 1st. And basically that's been moved up 2 months, which is fairly significant. But just quickly, before I run through the changes at the state level, a couple of changes locally here with the Board of Health meeting that took place on Monday. The board basically did 2 actions on Monday that I just want to report about. The first one is the board lifted their Board of Health order on face coverings on the Main Street area between the Rotary and School Street, the Fish Pier observation deck, lighthouse overlook and stairs, and at the transfer station. And that was, they lifted that effective immediately. So basically, as of last night, this morning, we did send out an updated press release on that to get it out there. But just so people understand that just because the Board of Health rescinded their order requiring masks in those areas, masks are still required in areas where the public outdoors, where the public is unable to social distance. So the state order, the governor's order number 67, that speaks to the mask mandate at the state level, that is still in effect until May 29th. That order will be sunsetted, if you will, on May 29th, but that order is still in place until May 29th. And it basically requires masks to be worn indoors at all times in public locations. So retail stores, other locations, you're still required to wear a mask. And outdoors, you're still required to wear a mask if you're outdoors in a public location and you cannot maintain social distancing from other non-household members. So technically, if you're walking downtown on a busy Saturday or Sunday in the nice weather for this weekend coming up, you should still be wearing a mask if, it's crowded like it normally is and you can't social distance. Same thing on the Fish Pier observation deck, lighthouse overlook, and the transfer station. And then for events and gatherings, if they're indoors, they're required at all times for events and gatherings. And if you're in a private home and you're having people over, masks are recommended, but they're not required. So that will be still in effect until May 29th. And then the Board of Health, while they rescinded their mandatory mask order, they are advising that all unvaccinated individuals should wear a face covering when they can't social distance in accordance with the CDC guidelines. Now, starting on May 29th, the state's mandatory mask order will disappear, but it will be replaced by a mask advisory or a face covering advisory from the Commonwealth, and that will be consistent with the CDC's guidelines that were announced last week. And we have information on that up on our website, and the state will be issuing further written material on that probably later, either this week or next week in anticipation of what's happening on the 29th. The other action that the Board of Health took last night was they voted to alter their recommendation last week. They had made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen suggesting that recommending that the July 4th parade be canceled. And that was based on the information that was available to them and the town at the time, where parades and other outdoor events like that were limited to 50% capacity and difficulty social distancing and whatnot. But based on the latest information from the state that basically said the 50% capacity limitation did not apply to parades, the Board of Health is altering their recommendation, or basically rescinding their recommendation to the Board of Selectmen that the parade be canceled. So I'm sure the board will take that into consideration when you discuss it next week. The Board of Health's recommendation was only on public health grounds. They did talk about the fact, because one of the Board of Health members is on the parade committee, and I had spoken to the police chief earlier yesterday before the Board of Health meeting. And obviously the parade committee, as well as the Board of Selectmen, will have to deal with the logistic issues of availability of groups and bands and all, that haven't been meeting and able to play or practice because of the pandemic. So the board, the Board of Health felt that those were issues under the purview of the parade committee and the Board of Selectmen. So their recommendation was strictly on the Board of Health concerns and issues and the changes that came from the out of the state. And then just finally, I would just want to run through some of the other changes that are taking effect that were announced by the governor yesterday. So effective on May 29th, so not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, basically all the guidelines and restrictions for businesses, restaurants, retail, gyms, and outdoor venues and all will be rescinded. And so basically there will no longer be any capacity limitations. There will no longer be any statewide mask mandates. There will be, the only caveat to that is there will still be a mask mandate on public transportation. And some of that is coming from the federal government as well, the TSA. So if you go to a plane station, an airport, or a bus station or a train station, those kind of public transportation venues, face coverings are still required, as well as on planes, trains, and buses. They are also required on private transportation systems. So things like Ubers and Lyft and, taxis, you are still required to wear a face mask. And that may change in the future, but those guidelines will still be in effect come May 29th. And as well, you will still be required to wear masks in certain situations like hospitals, healthcare facilities, your doctor's office, facilities housing homeless populations or at-risk populations and areas like that. So it will be very case specific where you will need to wear a mask. But otherwise, all the guidelines and the capacity limitations for all other businesses or entity types will disappear starting on May 29th. As well as some issues took effect today in terms of sports. Effective today, amateur and youth sports activities, if they're practicing outdoors, they don't need to wear a mask anymore. So that's also great news for them. And then there were also some changes effective today for summer camps. We don't really have any residential camps in Chatham, but some other camp settings. And also the guidance for schools has changed. Masks are still required indoors in schools, both for K through 12 as well as in daycare type settings. However, when kids go out for recess, if they're outdoors, they no longer need to wear a mask. So those are some of the other changes. And then probably the other big change that was already alluded to is the state of emergency in Massachusetts is going to be lifted as of June 15th. However, as the chair alluded to, there are some efforts underway with the administration and the legislature to look at some of the issues such as outdoor dining, because right now outdoor dining in the Commonwealth is supposed to end 60 days after the state of emergency ends, which would be mid-August. And so, trying to make a change to get rid of outdoor dining in mid-August would be, potentially problematic for a lot of businesses in the middle of the summer tourist season, as well as was alluded to earlier, some potential changes to the open meeting law, which have allowed the virtual meetings to take place. Those are being looked at by the administration, the MMA, as well as the state legislature, and they may try to pass some legislation that would basically allow some of those things to continue even after the state of emergency is lifted, because there's been some good feedback on some of those issues. A lot of communities have indicated that virtual meetings, while not perfect, it has increased public participation, which is a good thing. And as indicated earlier, some communities are talking about transitioning to a hybrid system where the regulatory board or whatever may be meeting in person, but the public can participate remotely as a way to, again, kind of increase that public participation. And then just finally, I wanted to indicate, and I'm sure Town Manager Goldsmith may touch on this. We had a long discussion today, over an hour, at our department head meeting. We have another meeting coming up tomorrow in terms of what Chatham specifically may be doing as we move forward, recognizing the changes coming on the 29th and the impact that may have on, town office opening and whatnot. So I'm sure Jill's going to touch base on that in a little bit more detail. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Bob, that was really a thorough update. And Dean has his hand up.
Yeah, there's a reverberation. Little feedback.
Yeah, try it now, Dean.
Okay. Still hearing it. All right, I'll try again. Okay. Thank you. I just really wanted to make a couple of comments. First of all, I think the governor's actions yesterday are really a credit to the people of Massachusetts. I think we have the highest percentage of vaccination in the country. It's 75%. That's what I heard. 4 million people vaccinated. That's terrific. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Bob. And also, I want to commend. I do want to commend the governor because I've criticized him a few times during these updates, particularly more recently when I felt he should be moving more quickly to open the state up. And he, I don't know if he was listening to me, but he certainly has. And the president did the same. And I especially want to commend our Board of Health. I'm not the liaison, Jeff is, but I think we're all grateful for the attention they have given to this issue of going forward. And I think it would benefit everyone to know we have 3 medical doctors on the Board of Health, 1 nurse and 1 professional public health person, as well as 2 citizens who have served for a long time. And they have, I think, been very nimble in being able to react to new developments as they come up, especially the developments of yesterday. So I really just wanted to make those comments. And I'm sure we're going to be looking to the Board of Health going forward for continuing guidance as we work our way through this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dean. Jeff?
Yeah, thank you, Selectman DeCastro. Well said. I echo your sentiments about the Board of Health. They've done a super job. They've been very proactive, very insightful. They were very responsive, I should say, yesterday, and taking the vote they did and rescinding their earlier vote, and their willingness to, to address the 4th of July parade as well. So I do commend them. They're a great committee. They've got a great chair and great members as well. And I also have to have a little attaboy to Dr. Duncanson and Jill and her team. Bob, you're giving those great updates every week, week after week after week. Hopefully at some point they end. But your updates are spot on and complete and really very excellent. Really do. I think the whole town really appreciates them. So thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, great. Just so the board knows, I don't know if you got I did send a thank you to the Board of Health this morning, to the chair, just to thank them for their good stewardship during this. Not to say that, as you had said, Jeff, that it's over, but just to acknowledge their work. And thank you. Yes. Thank you, Bob. Okay, any questions from the remote participants for Dr. Duncanson? You may raise your hand in the remote if you're a Microsoft Teams participant, or if you're on the phone, you can speak out. Okay, I'm not seeing any this evening. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so our next is from our Finance Director, Alex Halela. Alex, welcome. You have a little bit of news for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the board had requested just where we are with our revenues and expenditures during the pandemic, and just tracking those to make sure that we're going to be okay fiscally. And I'm pleased to report that we are okay fiscally. To date, we have expended $936,525. We're still waiting for reimbursement. We have another round due this Friday, June 4th, under the CARES Act. And that has changed since now FEMA is reimbursing 100% of eligible costs rather than 75% of eligible costs. So our CARES Act funding was reduced. Our third round request was reduced. So we'll make that up on the reconciliation round for anything that FEMA might not reimburse. And we're also looking at the what's called the ARPA funds, which are the new federal government funds. So more to come on that. We had a webinar today from the Mass Municipal Association with the Lieutenant Governor as well, her update. We expect more information next week from them on what costs will be eligible and how to go about that. So we're still waiting guidance on those funds. As far as our revenues, our local estimated receipts to date, I'm pleased to report that we're still looking good there. Although we're not quite as above where we were. We're $78,260 over where we were for the same period last year. So not a large increase, but again, due to the pandemic, that's good news that we still are above where we were last year. And that includes the additional short-term rental taxes. So you can see that there have been some drop off, but again, we've made our local estimated receipts, so no risk of a revenue deficit that we would have to raise for next year. And that's really all I have to report. We'll be reporting more as we know more on the ARPA funds, and happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Dean has his hand up. Dean?
Sorry. Alex, just one quick question on the short-term rental tax. So do you have a projection as to how much we're going to take in for FY21 on the short-term rental tax?
Well, to date, we've taken in $1,149,434. We have one more payment, which will be due June 30th. However, I did read something from the DOR website that some of those taxes can be deferred until the next fiscal year. So I'm not sure how much will come in. And typically, the payment that we get in June is one of the lower payments for the year.
Okay. And this is money we didn't essentially get for all of last year. We got some last year, but not because of the way it kicked in, right?
Correct.
So, okay.
We received some on June 30th, but not a lot.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other questions for Alex from the board? Okay, any questions from the remote participants? Please raise your hand or speak out. Okay, thank you, Alex. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, our next update is from our town manager, Jill Goldsmith. Jill?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. So as Bob said, we had a detailed department head meeting today and looking at a couple of things. One would be public access to town offices, town buildings, including the community center, council on aging, in-person meetings or hybrid meetings. Hopefully they'll be allowed to be hybrid with the proposed legislative changes to the open meeting law as it relates to in-person quorum. So right now that is a legislative option, but our meeting rooms are set up to have hybrid meetings. And then looking to the employees, just resiliency moving forward, how our workplace will look a little different. Look a little different for everyone because some of the workplace modifications are going to be permanent for us. So when the public does come in, you'll see that there are some plexiglass barriers, but you could see through them just out of safety to the employees and for the public. So nothing too drastic. We still have a historic building here and most of our buildings will look pretty much the same. The one issue that I'm working through is that tomorrow is a vaccination clinic for town employees for the second vaccinations, the second shot. And so with that in 14 days, I can't commit to opening town offices before June 7th, but that's something that we're looking at just with the number of employees that are participating in that vaccination clinic tomorrow for their second shot. So we do need 14 days after that for them to be fully vaccinated. And we're going to have to bring items back to the board for reopening probably within the next 2 weeks so that you can weigh in on a few things, in-person meetings, if there's any considerations that we need to do for possibly moving forward with the outdoor dining, or as a local licensing authority for the outdoor service of alcoholic beverages. Some of this is a local option, and some of it may be extended through the legislative process. And last, it's June 15th, which will be the expiration of the governor's order of a state of emergency, and we'll need for the board to take action to rescind your order of a state of emergency. So we'll plan to do that likely at the meeting on June 8th. So a lot of things in the works. We'll have more information at upcoming meetings, and definitely for the board to weigh in on moving forward. It's just that it's not that we didn't expect this to come so soon. It's that it's a little sooner than that we expected. So working through that. And I know everybody is looking forward to get back into in-person meetings, and I definitely think we can accommodate that with the large meeting room. And when you get back in there, you'll see it set up a little differently with the renovation that was done and the upgrade. So more information in the next 2 weeks, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jill. We've got a lot of work to be done, but it's good work, and you know, we won't feel dire like we did last year. This is a whole different pace, definitely. Any questions for Jill from the board?
No.
Any questions from the remote participants for Jill? Okay. All right. Thank you, Jill. All right. So we're heading into our business agenda time, but before that, we're going to do public comments. And the public is welcome to comment on our business agenda items, the Traffic Safety Committee recommendation. Select Board will be acting as Water and Sewer Commissioners to consider declaring a mandatory water conservation order. And also there are requests for sales on town property for upcoming summer events, the Creative Arts Center, and Castleberry fairs and festivals. Some of the other things we're working on is we will have committee appointments, town manager performance, and we will have an executive session later on in the meeting. Are there any folks that wish to make any public comments at this time? Okay, I'm not seeing any. All right, then we'll move forward with our first agenda item, which is the Traffic Safety Committee recommendations. I don't know if I actually said that the first when I described what we have. And we have Lieutenant Andrew Goddard, who is the Traffic Safety Committee liaison, and he has a request for a selectman hearing. So, Lieutenant Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee has moved to put forward 3 requests or recommendations before the board for your consideration. I'll run through them one at a time here. The first is the committee received several requests from a couple residents on Kent Place for some speed reduction measures. The committee went through various options from benign to the extreme, discussed them amongst with the fire chief, police department, DPW, etc. They voted to recommend the installation of 2 10-mile-an-hour speed advisory signs on Kent Place at a location to be specified or determined by the DPW director, just to advise people that the speed limit, the narrowness of the road, etc.
Do we have any questions on the Kent Place speed reduction request? Jeff?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that Kent Place is the road it's very short, but it bails out of the parking lot behind the commercial center downtown. Is that what we're talking? It's narrow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
leads where EMAC and Bolio's is out behind Town Hall and onto Cross Street.
right. And the speed limit there now is something north of that, or, I mean, just by dint of it's being so narrow, I mean, I can't imagine going any faster than 10, but I guess folks do, otherwise they wouldn't be bringing it up. So, Shireen, I don't know if you want to have motions as we go here or whatever, but
Yeah.
I move that we put two 10-mile-an-hour signs on Kent Place.
Do we have a second to that?
Second, Peter.
Okay, if we don't have any further comment or questions on this, do we want to take a vote?
Sure.
Are you prepared? Okay,
Sure.
let's take a vote then. Peter,
Aye.
Corey,
Yes, aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Aye,
and the chair says aye. Okay,
thank you.
all right, go ahead, Andrew.
Thank you. The second is a request for reconsideration of an item that was brought up before the board on September of 2019. This is a recommendation to establish a traffic pattern in the parking lot of the community building, a one-way traffic pattern. In September of 19, there was only 4 members of the board present, and it resulted in a 2-2 split vote. So the committee wanted to represent this and put it up for reconsideration. The recommendation is to establish a counterclockwise pattern in the community building parking lot. So vehicles would enter and leave in the standard driveway. As they entered, they would be directed to turn towards the right and then circle around in a counterclockwise direction and then exiting past the building. The purpose of this is just to establish a pattern so that all the cars are moving in the same direction, to reduce the incidence of vehicles passing each other in the parking lot, make it a little bit easier for pedestrians to know where people are going, make it easier for vehicles to get out of parking spots, et cetera. I did some observation of the last couple of times that we set it up as a temporary measure, town elections and so forth, and it seemed to go very well. I didn't notice that many transgressions on that. Fewer than 10% of the vehicles that I observed actually went against what was the one-way pattern that we had established at that point. It's been discussed with the Director Temple so far as placement of markings and so forth, and Director Tobin has given his endorsement of it as well. So the recommendation is to establish that pattern as a permanent basis as opposed to a temporary basis.
Okay, and so it'll just be directional signs, directional indications on the pavement? Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah, there would be one-way sign as you drove in, directing you to the right, and then there would be a couple of arrows placed on the pavement to keep the traffic flow moving in that counterclockwise direction. And that would be at the discretion of Director Temple.
Okay, great. Corey has his hand up. Either he's going to make a motion or he has a question. Go ahead, Corey.
Questions and some comments, actually. I know when this was brought before us before, I voted in opposition of it. I have full respect for the Traffic Safety Committee and bringing this forward, but I just want to kind of elaborate on my own opinion and my own observations. I mean, I've been to the community building countless times, countless days of the week, months of the year, time of day for every event under the sun with the kids and what have you. So my concern in creating a, well, first of all, I don't think there is really a major concern with traffic safety in the parking lot as it is. I don't recall any major reports of accidents or, that we can recall, in the records. My concern is if we go with a counterclockwise pattern, when you enter into the community parking lot, most people, especially in the morning, they want to go to the spots to the left that are kind of, toe into the field. And I think that just by nature, there's going to be people that are going to go against the recommendation of the sign and just cut across. And then those who will abide by it and start going to the right and counterclockwise, I think there's going to be some, I'm not saying everyone, that might want to go with a little more pep and try to get over to where they want to park nearby. And if they miss out on it, then they got to loop around. But I do think we're actually creating more of a hazard, especially with smaller kids and the age group that is there at certain times of the day. I also question if we did this counterclockwise pattern, the school buses for both the after school activities, summer baseball leagues and everything. Ideally, they want to go straight into the back and usually kind of do a 3-point turn in the back. So now we're going to be putting them up into the right counterclockwise, which is probably manageable. I don't think it's ideal. I just think that we're trying to create a solution for a problem that really isn't there. I do feel relatively strongly about this. On special occasions when there's with patrols and there's more eyes being looked upon the situation, I can see this working fine from that narrow occasions, but on a daily, everyday basis, when we don't have observation or any type of enforcement component in place, and it's just open to people's natural instinct. I think a lot of people are just going to go on a direct line and bypass that arrow and go right to the closest spots. And I'm concerned that, again, we're creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exactly exist. So I'm still have not convinced to change my vote. I will most likely be voting against this unless I hear something that really, changes my mind in the next few minutes. But again, I appreciate the Traffic Safety Committee, bringing this up for reconsideration. I'm just not sold on the permanent traffic pattern solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Jeff?
Yeah, I think Peter had his hand up first.
Okay.
No, okay,
No.
it's all right. I'll speak.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Jeff.
that's fine. Yeah, no, I think the one-way recommendation, I would support it. I think it works really well on the days of town election. I don't go there as often as Selectman Metters, but I think if it works on days of high traffic, it'll work on days of low traffic as well. Just makes a lot of sense to me to pull in straight, take a right, go around. And if we probably have people darting for those spots now that Selectman Metters mentioned, and maybe those folks will still do the same, but one would hope that they would buy by the one-way pattern. It makes a lot of logical sense to me, that's all. So I'm probably going to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Great. Do you want to make a motion or anything, or you want to wait to hear some of the other
Well,
comments?
I
Jeff?
definitely want to wait to hear from Selectmen Kokolas and Nicastro.
Okay. Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jeff. I haven't heard Kokolas in a long time. That's the way you're
Kokolas,
done
sorry.
by the family. In any case, in the last meeting, I voted for this, and I still believe it. I think it's a good way to standardize how we pull in and park. I go to I don't know if I go more or less than Corey, but I used to go to the community center 2 or 3 times a week and at different times. And I understand what Corey's saying. And you go there for the men's club and you see what's going to happen. A lot of guys will go straight ahead, shoot for the first shots. Well, here's the point. Once you get 2 or 3 cars down there, and if everybody starts going against it, you have cars that are pulling into the left and to the right. You're causing, I believe, a hazard. You may get 4 or 5 cars if they break the law. They're in there. After that, it's much easier for people to go around to the right. And a lot of the old guys figured that out after having come up against each other, heading straight ahead into that parking lot. So I'm for it. I think it's a good thing to do. And yes, when it's not busy, people will probably go straight ahead. But when it gets a little busy and hey, I've been there, you get 20, 30 cars coming in at one time. And when the first guys go over to the left, they take up the first 5 or 6 slots, and you have people walking across and others trying to get across there. It's just a mess. So I vote for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Jeff? No, I mean, Dean, sorry. Dean?
Thank you, Shereen. I went back and looked at the minutes because I couldn't remember which way I voted on this, but I voted no with Corey. I think I was persuaded by Corey's arguments at that time. And the one question that was raised at the time was whether, if there is a problem there, whether it is only a seasonal problem, particularly during the summer season. And I don't have strong feelings on either side of this, and both sides have made good arguments. I did want to ask 2 questions of Lieutenant Goddard. First, I have forgotten, what was the genesis of this? Was this something the commission took up on its own, Traffic Safety Committee, or were there public comments or requests or complaints that led to?
This was something they brought up on their own, just on their own observations, my observations, et cetera.
Okay. And you said that the Park and Rec director favored this. Do you know?
Yes, at that time I spoke with Dan Tobin. He was in support of it. And I've spoken with Tom Temple. He is in support of it as well.
Do we know whether the Park and Rec Commission itself has voiced any opinion on this?
I don't believe they have.
You believe they have?
No, I don't believe they have, no.
Okay. And the final question is, so if this were to go in place, would violating the arrows be a ticketable offense?
I don't believe so. I think these would be advisory signs. We wouldn't have enforcement ability attached to it. It would just be a matter of trying to kind of push everybody in the same direction.
Yeah. I think perhaps Jeff or Peter are going to offer a motion, but I think I'd like to hear from the Park and Rec Commission to see what their advice is on this. And I assume Director Tobin is probably reflecting what he thinks is their position on it. But because I'm somewhat ambivalent on it, and and which would lead me to vote no on something, I would prefer to punt on this and let's get an advice from that commission. So that's where I'm at on it. Thank you.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I should have mentioned the last time that I did, and Lieutenant Goddard, I was approached by a number of people at the community center one day and was brought out by a citizen that said, take a look at what's going on over here. And it was a busy day and there were cars coming and going, and she was very upset that there were people crossing the streets and they were going against the traffic. So yeah, my point is that there was a public comment, and I mentioned it to someone on the traffic safety committee. So there really, at least from my perspective, I did receive at least a couple of people that were concerned about the way the traffic was going.
Okay. All right, so Jeff, your hand's back up. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I move we implement a one-way traffic flow at the community center's parking lot.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All right, then unless there's further discussion, I'll take a vote from everybody.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, go ahead, Corey. Yeah, go ahead,
No,
Corey.
no, I think my position is outvoted. Would the board consider maybe just a 1 year, if we implement this, just do a 1 year review? I'm sure removing the permanent, the signs that would be, or the arrows that would be painted is not a heavy lift if it were chosen to remove it. But I would just like to kind of get a recap a year from implementation to see if there is any positive, comments pro or con. I have my opinion. Other people have their opinion, but just to kind of verify or certify were these steps appropriate, and did we gain anything or did we lose anything? So I would just ask for a 1 year review.
Corey, are you asking Jeff to amend his motion?
Yes, I am.
To include a year review. Jeff?
I'm fine with that. If that's, it's going to work. It's going to be dynamite, but I'm fine with that.
Okay. And Peter, are you fine with that? Okay.
Yeah, I'd say if you get his vote, I'll do that for a year.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a vote. Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes, but it's an amended motion, right?
It's
Yes.
an amended motion, yes.
Thank you.
To include 1 year.
1 year review.
1 year review. Jeff?
Aye.
And chair says aye. Okay. Lieutenant Goddard, we have a Fox Hill and Strong Island request for stop signs.
Yes, the various representatives from the homeowners associations in that area, Fox Run Association, Eastward Point Properties owners, approached me and approached the Traffic Safety Committee regarding a couple of different issues in that area. And working with them and then working with the committee, came up with what they all felt would be the best first step in addressing some of their concerns regarding vehicle speed, the limited shoulder area for pedestrians in that area, and the intersection itself of Fox Hill and Strong Island. What we came up with was adding 2 additional stop signs at that intersection on Fox Hill Road, so that vehicles coming from the golf course area would have to come to a full stop at that intersection. That would serve a couple of purposes. It would slow down the vehicles as they approach that. That particular section of Fox Hill is fairly narrow, one side being an embankment in the front lawn of a gentleman's house, the other being a negative embankment. So that would serve the purpose of making the intersection safer from that direction and also slowing the vehicles down coming down that hill. adding the stop sign going in the other direction, coming from Avalon Point headed up Fox Hill. If you've come out from Strong Island and stopped at that stop sign, visibility is pretty difficult looking back to the left. The road comes in at an angle and there is some vegetation there, which makes it a little bit difficult to see to the left. Some of the concerns that were expressed by members of these associations were vehicle traffic coming up there, particularly contractors, landscapers, not to single anybody out, but larger vehicles that might not have the ability to stop or slow down as quickly. And pulling out there, they felt was a concern that they might be pulling out in front of somebody they couldn't see. So adding that second stop sign there would stop those vehicles at that intersection. And the committee felt, as the homeowners felt, it would make that a whole lot safer right in that area. So the committee voted to go ahead and make that recommendation to you folks for consideration.
Okay, yeah, the visibility there is quite difficult, and yeah. So any questions or a motion from the board? Jeff?
Lieutenant Goddard, there's already a stop sign at the end of Strong Island Road, right?
Yes, there is. This would be the addition of 2 stop signs on Fox Hill on either side of that intersection.
Right. So I would move the installation of those two stop signs on Fox Hill Road. That is a tough intersection. It is. That's a tough one.
A second on that?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we'll take a vote. Okay, let's take a vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Okay, and I say aye. All right, so that passed. Thank you, Lieutenant Goddard. I appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I think that's it for us, right? Okay. All right, Select Board, we're going to be serving as Water Sewer Commissioners and considering a declaration of a mandatory water conservation order. And this is, we have, I think we have Chuck Bartlett from the Water and Sewer Commissioners.
Yes, you do, Madam Chair.
Okay, welcome. The Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, sorry, excuse me. We also have Tom Temple on and Tom Barr. Tom Barr being our Chief Water Operator from Weston and Sampson here. So I think that we have a presentation being done by the Director of Public Works, Tom Temple.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair and the Select Board. I gave a brief outline of the Department of Environmental Protection declaration of Level 1 state water supply emergency. We met with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee on Thursday, May 13th, to discuss all the issues. In my report, I highlighted the surrounding towns, what they were doing at the time that I put the package together. Since that time, I do want to say that Brewster has also, their select board has approved them to move forward. They've gone to an odd even day as well. I provided USGS aquifer levels showing that we're approximately 16 inches below the average that we normally have at this time. I've also provided pumpages that we had throughout the community from 2015 to 2021, as well as the pumpages from 2018 to 2021 from January to April. Also included was the well 2, which showed the levels of where it shuts off approximately 3 feet from the base of that well, as well as I noted in there that well 5 shuts off at approximately 5 feet. All this stuff was discussed with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. We talked about our recommendation that we thought that was best for the town of Chatham moving forward, which I've included in my report. As part of their vote, you'll notice that on their committee recommendation, their third bullet, their last bullet, also talked about what about those people that aren't connected to the town's water distribution system. They had asked that I get a legal opinion from town council. Basically, after I reached out to town council, he indicated that his opinion was that you can only regulate those that are connected to the town's water distribution, water supply. So I can open up to any questions that any of the board members may have, as well as if Chuck had any other questions or wanted to say something further than what we discussed, that's fine too.
Yeah, why don't we hear from Chuck and then we'll ask some questions. How's that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So as Tom mentioned, we met on Thursday, and he went through the case for making mandatory water conservation. We were impressed by the fact that the aquifer really is lower this year than it's been in recorded history, and it's not only lower; it's turning lower sooner than it's done before. And it looks as though the customer demand for water is going to be high this year. Everybody sort of looking forward to a busy summer, so that we really do have an issue, and so the committee considered a recommendation. The existing voluntary water conservation declaration made on March 23rd, 2021, now be implemented as a mandatory water conservation declaration. The vote was four attendees and nobody against it.
Okay. All right, thank you. So basically, we just have not had enough rain to replenish the aquifer quick enough. And this is all tied into, I guess, for people's to understand a little bit, that we're serviced from what's called the Monomoy lens, which is a multi-town sort of water system. Is that how, I mean, that's where the water is from. It's under a multitude of towns in the Lower Cape, correct? Am I correct?
That's
Yes.
correct.
That's correct. And what happens normally, we get the precipitation during the winter months and early spring, which brings that water level back up where we really need to. But because we didn't have that type of winter this past year, it stayed low. And when you have, the spring that we had where it was pretty dry considering, and the weather that we're experiencing right now and we're going to have for the next few days, if we do get rain, it's now going right into the ground, right into the trees with the leaves. And so it's evaporating sooner, it doesn't get to the aquifer. So that's the problem that we face. So that's why when they declared this a level 1 state of water supply emergency, the other communities jumped on and voted right away. We tried to set up a date. We had some people that were out sick, and we tried to make the appointments and tried to schedule the meeting, and then we missed because we couldn't make the postings fast enough. So, we tried to get it on board as soon as we could to the select board, so that way there we could have you acting as the Water and Sewer Commission, address this as soon as we could.
Okay, so I just want to let the board know that we also have Pat Costello's on the call for our for an upcoming agenda item if there's any questions. But Jeff had his hand up first, and then Dean. So we'll go to Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Sharina. I'm going to vote in favor of this unequivocally. The data that Tom presented, it was really compelling for me. My barometer, and this is going to sound like, anyway, my barometer is the pond at Seaside Links. And I've never seen that pond at Seaside Links as low as it is now. It would normally, after rain and snow all winter, it would be almost overflowing. And it is down appreciably. So, and the data just served to confirm that, Farmer's Almanac approach to this. I've been concerned about water for years, as you know, and I'm very concerned this year, knowing that we have drought conditions. I'm thrilled to see the surrounding towns implement this, and we can join that effort in a regional approach. Demand is up because of COVID. We had earlier demand than we normally do in March and April. So anyway, demand's up, supply is down. So it's time to really jawbone this puppy. The only kind of technical question I had was how are the other wells faring other than wells 2 and 5? I just want to know, where they stand in terms of the 3.1, foot, level and the 5 foot level. I'd like to know where the other ones stand. And also to assuage or assure the public that no one's filling pools, if you will, from the town wells. And And anyway, that's what I've got, and I'm concerned, and I'm going to vote in favor of this.
I'm going to let Tom Barr speak with respect to, he's the chief operator for the water side of things. I'll let him where he's on a day-to-day basis with the wells, so he can give you an update on the other wells.
Hi, folks.
Thanks. Hi, Tom. Go ahead.
How are you? So with well 2 and well 5, the reason that they are having the tougher times is they're not as deep as some of our other wells. Wells 8 and then 6, 7, and 9 that service the treatment plant off Morton Road, they're dug much deeper. So they're further down into the aquifer. So wells 2 and 5 are shallower wells. So they're not able to draw the water from the top of the aquifer because it's down the 16 or so inches. So that would be the reason. What happens though is wells 2 and 5 will shut off early because they have that low limit sensor, which then makes all the rest of the wells have to continue to pump to make up for those wells shutting down. So those wells are now running at a higher daily average than what they normally would be. So that's what is affecting those wells. Hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
And to go one step further, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but the industry standard is normally 16 hours for pumping a day. When those other 2 wells kick off, what happens is we end up into the 21, 22 hour range, and that's very taxing on our pumps, very taxing on our system, and you're drawing down. You're not giving enough recovery time for the groundwater to get back up, so you're closer to the screens, which sometimes you get in more trouble with bacteria counts, et cetera. So we try to go ahead and give the wells, each of the wells, a rest and choose and switch them back and forth. So, but because of the level we're at right now, our hands are kind of tied with wells 2 and 5. So, a very important topic, and I can't emphasize the importance of it.
Tom or Tom. I just realized that. Are we extra treating our water because it's lower? Appeared to be a little more bleachy taste to my water.
No, the reason that you have a little bit more bleach in there was we were flushing. We have to do our annual flushing, and we didn't do it last year because of the COVID. Everybody was nervous at going into houses, so that we've eliminated the flushing program. We've stopped that due to the drought situation. So chlorine residuals will be going down.
Okay.
Part of the other problem with the flushing, and the reason we talked about eliminating it last year, was because if you do end up with water main breaks as a result of shutting those off, then you have to go into every house and you have to go ahead and bleed the system and flush out the water. So now you're exposing the manpower and our staff into those places where it was just underway and taking off. So it was kind of critical that we skipped that last year.
Okay. Thank you. Dean, you had some questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just a couple of comments. As liaison to the Water and Sewer Committee, I did participate in the meeting last week, and what we're being asked to do is essentially make mandatory the voluntary restrictions we have in place now with a system of fines. So I advised the committee that their votes should be contingent upon getting a favorable opinion from town council on whether we could enforce fines, as we did back in 2002. And also the committee moved after some discussion in the direction of whether there should be a mandate on private wells, which serve mostly to water the irrigation systems, provide water to the irrigation systems. And I suggested that be the subject of an opinion from town council. I know that there was, I believe there was some communication between Director Temple and town council prior to our getting the memo, but I felt that we could benefit from some clarification on specific questions. So as the board knows, on Sunday or Monday, I did pose 2 questions, and we did finally get an opinion from town council saying, yes, we can impose fines, but no, we cannot mandate restrictions on private wells. So with that in mind, I support the recommendation of the committee as qualified. The third recommendation, council has advised that we eliminate. I would propose as a substitute that we encourage the owners of private wells to honor the restrictions that have been imposed on municipal water usage. I speak as an owner of a private well, and I've tried to honor those over the last couple of years. So it's not a big deal to do that. I think people should do it. It was actually the same thing that was done in 2002. So those are my comments. When we come to a motion, I'm happy to put a motion on the table right now if we'd like. But I did want to suggest that for the benefit of the public, this chart, this one page might, if you could put it on the screen, it really tells the whole story. You can see that, Tom.
Is that the second page?
Yeah, it's the one that has the valley in it.
Yeah.
Yes, it's excellent.
I don't know if Shauna has the capability, a short term.
Okay, if she can't, that's fine.
Okay.
Shereen?
Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I have that. I don't have that. I have the same graph in a slightly different format that I can put up.
Okay, if it tells the same story, Bob, why don't you put it up and then?
Okay, that's great. I can continue.
Let me share my screen.
Okay.
I just can continue my comment and then I'll conclude while he's doing that if you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would also, since the communication with town council occurred after the agenda packages came out, I would suggest that we include that thread of emails in the minutes, attach them to the minutes of this meeting for the benefit of the public. And Bob, did you want to say something about this chart before I offer a motion?
Well, I was just going to say, this is the chart for the Brewster USGS observation well, because as the chair indicated, we do share the Monomoy lens with a number of other towns, and this is the well that's commonly used. And I think the thing that's important here is you can see how low it was in the November and December 2020 timeframe. And then we had a little bit of an uptick over the winter, but you can see when we get to the end, when we get to May of 2021, we are starting to see that seasonal downturn already that we commonly see in the summer and the early fall. But the important thing is we're already starting out from a level that's significantly lower than we were, back in January, March, May of 2020. So that's the concern, is we're already starting out way behind the 8 ball.
Okay, thank you. So Madam Chair, I want to offer the following tripartite motion.
Go ahead.
Number one, that the board, the select board adopt the recommendation of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to mandate the water usage restrictions that have been in place as voluntary measures for the current season. Number two, that we accept the recommendation of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee that there be a system of fines as was imposed in 2002, with the first a warning, second violation $100, third violation $200, and that be implemented. And third, that the select board encourage, that the Water and Sewer Commissioners encourage the owners of private wells to honor the restrictions imposed on municipal water usage.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Is there a second to Dean's motion? And then we have Corey and Peter want to make some comments.
Second, Peter.
Okay, thank you. Corey, would you like to make comments?
Yes, please. I just want to some clarification on some of the mechanics involved. On the proposed enforcement, fines and warnings, etc. How are we going to deal with the enforcement of it? And two, is the enforcement being taken against the property owner? Is it against the entity, i.e. a tenant that is renting a house for a year or a certain period of time? I'm just trying to understand how we are going to, the mechanics behind enforcement and fines, et cetera, et cetera. That's my first area of questions. And then the second area or item is with the, I'm assuming we have a pretty strong idea of our inventory of private wells in the community. And I've been led that there's been a somewhat increase interest in installing private wells within the town over the last couple of years. Fully recognize that we're pulling the water from the same lens. And I'm just wondering if we're tracking how the installation of these private wells is helping and or hurting our wells. Is it impacting us at all? So my kind of general questions. Thank you.
Okay, Tom had his hand up, so I believe he'd probably be able to answer your question about who.
Yeah, we'll start with, I guess, question one to answer Corey's question. The town of Chatham Water and Sewer Division will go ahead and will perform the inspections and the fines that would be associated with it. What they will do is they'll enter into a database on the Excel database, the violations that the home has, the property has, and enter it into this spreadsheet. From there, the property owner on record is the one that would be getting the fines. We don't have a list in the office of who's renting and who's there for 6 months, a year, whatever. We have the property owner, so it would go to the property owner. And then the last part of select board matters question was your third question. I'm sorry, just lost it.
Just private wells. Like I've been led to that, we've had an increase in installation of private wells. How is that impacting the town, the town wells in our system?
Well, currently right now, if you look at the report that I had put together, you'll notice that April was 26.1% higher than it was the previous April. That's 4,875,100 gallons more than the previous April. So, and if we looked at March, I didn't include it in the package, but if you look at March, we were probably about 26.6% higher than we were in the previous March. So the amount of pumpage that we're doing is far greater than we have been experiencing in previous years. And it was that trend all the way through even January, when you normally see the dips going down where we're starting to drop down, but we were still a little bit ahead of where we were the previous year. So, I don't think it's affecting us at this point with the amount of pumpage and the usage, because the people that are paying the premium, those that have wells that are, they're using the same aquifer, but the people that are tied into our distribution system, they're pumping, and what they're paying is based on the premium level, because they have a irrigation system and they have a separate second meter that's reading just strictly the irrigation that's being used for that property. So they're paying a higher premium, and they don't seem to mind because they are paying, it's separated, so you're not paying water and sewer bills on that. So to answer your question, I don't think we're seeing any results that are bringing down the water usage on the town side of it from our distribution system. It's still very taxed, and there's a lot of pumpage taking place even on our off season. So hopefully I've answered your question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, just a quick question. I don't know who I would answer this, but we just received our water bill. When's the next date our water bills would go out? Do we know? And the only reason I'm asking you that is because if we could perhaps put some water conservation information or additional into the water bill, it might be helpful for people to know where we're at.
Tom, if you could, do you know which sections they're doing next? Because it's split, not everybody's on the same reading. Could you?
Yeah, I'm not sure the sections, the town office there, Pam Jones manages that part.
So what we can do is if you'd like us to put something in there for water conservation, we can certainly put together something. I can put together a draft letter if you'd like, run it by you and the select board, and we can include that in the next round of bills that go out, so that everybody's getting that same letter moving forward.
I think that would be great, especially since we're telling people that they would be potentially be fined for violation. That might be helpful. Jill, did you add in?
Yeah, the offices send out bills on a quarterly basis to get to the whole town. So while we might get our bills not on an exact quarterly cycle, the town-wide is hit throughout the year on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
So definitely there's always an opportunity to put an insert into the water bill for notification to the water users.
That would be great. Peter, your hand's up and you've been very patient.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. No, mine is a couple of questions were already asked, but I'm obviously going to support this. I do have just two questions. One has to do with the fines. Is that something that's standard across the Cape? Because I think warning in the first one is fine, but you do it twice, you got to get hammered a little more. That's one question. But the second thing is, how do you monitor what's going to happen over this next couple of months? I know you know how much we're pumping and so forth. Are there milestones that you reach where you say, oh, we have real problems here and we have to do something different? For my own edification, as far as how do you systematically look across, for the next year or at least the next 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, we're keeping track of all the wells, and the same way that we're looking at the tank levels. We're on a day-to-day, we can tell you when the people are turning on the irrigation system by the drop of the tank and how fast it's going down. And then there's a recovery time to get it back up. And when you have that down 16 inches, lower than it should be, it's a lot harder for us to gain that level back up in the tank. So very important. We always are maintaining our eyes on all these wells and the pumpages that we're doing for these, because we have to have very big concerns about which wells we're shutting off and which ones we're trying to keep running and alternating them. So it is a juggling act, but they do a great job. Weston and Sampson, who are running our operations and keeping us informed and keeping the board and the Water and Sewer Advisory Boards all on the same page.
And just on the fines, that's a standard, I guess. Huh?
Well, I think what we did was, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Where this was a fine that was set in place in August 2002, the town had voted in September of 1997 with those fines. So we just kept those the same. While they may not have a lot of bite to them, at least there's something that we're doing and we're consistent with what had been done in the past. So, we're just trying to keep the honest people honest, and those that are, really abusing the water to know that, you can't do that. And we need to move past this.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. And we had voted to adopt those voluntary water restrictions. And those are up on our website, so people know they have all the information. Because I'm just going to post mine on the refrigerator so everybody can see it, how we're going to water the lawn or water the garden going forward. Just as a reminder, if we haven't been doing it right. Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to call our collective attentions to how well we've done with recycling, or trying to do with recycling. And this is not that far from that kind of initiative. And I think that if we can suggest as a town or as a water department or any other conservation measures, other than the odd even deal with watering your lawn or whatever, but the brick and I remember the brick in the toilet trick, and our toilets running and jiggle the handle, and we have to look at how we really waste water in other ways as well, because it's just too precious a commodity to mess around with, especially with the one lens, the one aquifer that we have running run on the Lower Cape. So I would look to the town for some leadership, and maybe the water department as well, and the experts for what are the other ways we can save water, other than this every other day ban, if you will, or mandatory ban, because this is as bad as I've seen it. I think we really need to pay attention. I think this is VIP. Not to overstate the obvious, but I think we really need to kind of put the same effort into that we did in recycling. So I don't know who I can volunteer, but it's somebody.
Well, can we put some sort of charge to the Water Commission, the Water Advisory Committee, and have them to take a look at it? And I see that Tom Barr's hands up. Tom?
Yep.
Yeah, just to go off a little bit of what you're saying about some information and stuff. I do believe it's on the website. We have a bunch of water conservation tips and guidelines under the Chatham Water Department. It also goes out in the annual newsletter that is sent out. And I believe there's stuff that goes out in the water bills as well that talks about different means of conserving water. And we always have our open house in May, but we didn't have it last year, obviously, due to COVID. We probably won't have it again this year because it's already past there, but that's something that maybe in October we can do an open house again and have, we have a bunch of different little trinkets and gadgets and stuff for conservation as well. And a lot of that stuff is available at the DPW office now. Just a few things there.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, the information that Tom was just telling you about, it's in the agenda report under current on page 6. That's a list of everything that the town is currently doing and all the different things we're doing to conserve water use and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. It's two good pages full of all the things that the town has implemented over the last several years, including when we replace fixtures in bathrooms and public restrooms. We go with the lower gallons per use and do our best to conserve the water that we're trying to take care of here. So
Thank you. So Peter, your hand's up. Is that up from the last time? Or
No, Madam Chair, that's fine.
Okay, Jeff, again.
Not to beat a dead horse, and I guess I am, but I would just be as proactive as we possibly can be. Do we have the water saving shower heads available for people to pick up at 10? Well, I'm not so sure people know that. I'd do a press release, or I'd get it out there as best we can, that we've got some tools that help us conserve water. And plus we have the summer coming, and people, we got a bunch of hoorahs coming here. I mean, people are they're not going to be thinking about water conservation. They're going to think about water usage. Just saying.
All right, we have a vote to take. We haven't taken it yet. So let's take the vote. And Peter?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Dean?
Aye.
Chair says aye. All right, I think we've been heard about needing to do some more outreach. Public outreach is really important right now. With all due respect to the resources that the staff have, we have a new website coming up, and open houses with a great idea. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody.
All right, short of Jeff thinking about having a water conservation committee set up to start doing things like the recycling, but that's just a thought for another day. Okay, so the next is request for sales on town property. Castleberry fairs and festivals at the community center, July 10, 11, August 7th and 8th. And then the Creative Arts Center Festival of the Arts, Chase Park, August 19 and 23rd. Shauna, you put together the memo. I don't know if anybody from representing those events are on the call. I think we got an email that the Castleberry folks were not. But if you can give us a little overview, if you don't mind, that would be helpful.
Sure. The representatives were not available tonight on a short notice. These are pretty standard requests to comply with the general bylaw for sale of goods on town property. These two events do take place at the community center lawn and the Chase Park. So they are town property. And the only adjustment, if you will, from the agenda report would be to the motion, eliminating the need to comply with any governor's orders in place of the time for July 10 and 11 Castleberry Fair events, because as we know, things will be lifted prior to that.
Okay. Right. The governor's order. All right. Okay. So we know that they've both been vendors here in town. Park and Rec has granted approval of the use of the community center's front lawn. And the commission also granted approval for the Chase Park usage as well in their meeting. It doesn't say when the meeting was, but I'm assuming it was just shortly ago. All right, so do we have any questions or a motion from the board? Anybody?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Dean.
I move that the board grant special permits for the sale of goods on town property to Castleberry Fairs and Arts and Crafts Fair on the Community Center lawn on July 10 and 11, 2021, and to further grant special permits for the sale of goods on town property to Castleberry Fairs for an Arts and Crafts Fair on the Community Center lawn on August 7th and 8th, 2021, and to the Creative Arts Center for the Festival of Arts in Chase Park from August 19 to August 23rd, 2021.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, if there's no further comments or questions, we can take a vote. Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we can move forward. Okay, Corey.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Chair says aye. Okay, all right, thank you, Shauna. All right, so we have a committee appointment, and this will be for one vacancy for an unexpired term to June 30th, 2021. The board may wish to make this appointment to June 30th, 2024. Right now, we have Roz Coleman, who is interviewed, and this is for the Cable Advisory Committee. She interviewed on May 11th of 2021. Do we have a motion to appoint?
Madam Chair,
Go
I
ahead.
move to appoint Rosalind Coleman to the Cable Advisory Committee until June 30th, 2024, unless sooner revoked or a successor is appointed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's take a vote. Jeff.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Corey.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Okay, and the chair says aye. Okay, our next agenda item is our yearly town manager performance evaluation. And this is for the fiscal year 2021 and the current year of 2020. And so we're going to welcome Jill to the presentation here. And just as a little overview, this is something that we do annually per the town charter. And basically, it is a certain methodology that we use to evaluate Ms. Goldsmith's performance, and it's based on 6 general managerial categories, the first one being personnel and professional, the second being board support and relations, the third being financial management, the fourth being personal management, organizational leadership, the fifth being community leadership and public relations, and finally the fifth being town operations and infrastructure. And what is asked of the select board is to then review these specific categories and to award performance points based on a total of 38 different subcategories using a 4-point rating scale. And understanding that ratings and a 4-point rating scale can be subjective, but we are the same board evaluating Ms. Goldsmith for the second year collectively as the same board. And I do want to tell you what those rating scores mean. 4 points is excellent, highly commendable. 3 points is strong performance. 2 points satisfactory and acceptable. And 1 point is improvement needed, and an NO is not observed. So based on this point system, Ms. Goldsmith was awarded a composite score of 3.91. This is up from the composite score of last year that she received, which was 3.89. And it indicates a strong collective praise from our board on her ongoing high performance and excellent managerial skills. Okay, so Jill does continue to rank in the scoring range of strong performance to excellent, high, commendable, mostly in the latter. It is noteworthy that Ms. Goldsmith received perfect 4.0 score in 27 of the 38 subcategories and received a highly respectable composite score of 3.6 to 3.8 in additional 10 subcategories. In only one subcategory was there a lower composite score of 3.40, still a range of strong performance. In 2020, some of the select board comments on the town manager's performance evaluation. In addition, what we do is in addition to doing the metrics evaluation points, we do comment on each of these different categories, the personal and professional. And Jill has been, when it comes to personal and professional, has been exemplary in her commitment to our town during this past year's during this year's pandemic. She resolved the daily challenges with an impressive ability, and I commend her, was one of the board members' comments. Secondly, one of the other comments was Jill continues to maintain the highest standards of honesty and integrity under all circumstances. A consummate professional. She is fair, sets a high standard, and leads by example. Another comment is under professional and personal was encourage town manager to continue to be more vocal on agenda discussions and express opinions and positions. And the town manager carries out her responsibilities in a highly professional manner. Another is Jill possessed the utmost integrity. On the board support and relationships, some of the comments that were made by the select board were, it's been reassuring to work with Jill and see her navigate a multitude of board policies, proposals, and decisions throughout the various town departments and entities, all the while keeping us apprised and updated in an efficient, cohesive manner. Secondly, Jill and her team provide excellent support to the select board. Another is even during COVID, the town manager has been available and has maintained good communication with the select board. Additionally, the town manager works to keep the select board apprised of important matters and provides board members with considerable staff development material to assist with policymaking. Another comment was excellent relationships with the select board. Once in a while, I hear of some town business that I wish I could have heard from Jill first. This does not happen often. Thirdly, in the financial management comments, Jill's work with the town financial team to maintain a AAA bond rating, especially during a pandemic that created financial uncertainty, is commendable. Simply outstanding was another comment. Conservative budgeting, COVID-19 financial plan, and coastal resiliency planning efforts contribute to retaining an S&P bond AAA rating with a stable outlook. Second such rating under COVID emergency. Also, another comment was town manager continues to be very strong in this category. Another is successful financial planning and management continues to be the central theme to the town management's job performance, as well as she works well with our financial director. On a personal management and organizational leadership side, some of the comments were Jill manages by example in her leadership and personal management, and she has been sensitive to staff's adjustments during this year's change to work environments. Other comments are she recognizes the importance of maintaining good staff morale, suggests making employee recognition of newer hires during COVID. Also, that the town manager's accomplishments in the personnel category continue at a high level, as evidenced by the job performance and presentation at the select board meetings by the department heads and other staff. And I just want to make note that this is information that we have in our packet tonight. Community leadership and public relations. I'm not reading it all, but I'm reading a substantive, we get the drift kind of side to this. Jill portrays a positive image for our town. Her dedication to ongoing outreach and professional development is an asset to our town. It is during crisis emergencies when community leadership is most tested and results most recognized. As first seen last year at the start of COVID, the town manager and staff planned and expanded and took initiative to address existing and future issues, providing community information forums and maintaining support to boards and committee. The town manager community updates were a useful tool for the public during COVID. stellar advocate and representative of and for Chatham, Jill is held in high regard by a wider community and business community in particular. Town operations infrastructure. Jill continues her commitment to the improvement of town infrastructure to enhance strategies, delivery of services, and strengthen operations at all levels, from positively realigning janitorial services to initiating an IT town hall anywhere communications operations so necessary during the COVID restrictions. Encourage the town manager to open up town buildings and determine proper steps for boards, committees to return to meetings in person or via hybrid model using current technology. The town manager admirably takes a hands-on approach to overseeing the town's operations, thus allowing her to encourage innovation and fine-tuning in staff implementation of select board policy and directives of town business in general. And in conclusion, I just want to say that Jill effectively adapts well to change as exemplified by this historic pandemic. She worked under challenging circumstances, yet still performed at an exceptionally high level, actually excelling in her performance from previous years. She exhibits a professional, positive attitude when dealing with the public and town departments. Jill works well with the board and has enhanced community outreach, improving communications to the public, and should continue to strive to keep the select board apprised of issues in a timely manner and to be more vocal during the school select board meeting discussions. Jill shows strength and dedication in her role as a town manager and continues to move forward the selectmen's goals and objectives with good management and purpose. And as the board chair, and I commend Town Manager Goldsmith for her dedication and stewardship of our town management during this extraordinary year, which has been like no other. So thank you, Jill, for your service to the town. And if you have any comments, we'll appreciate it.
Yes, I do, if you don't mind. So
Sure.
I'm very honored to serve as town manager now in my 10th year, and I hope to serve this great community for many more years. I also want to thank the board for your thoughtfulness that each member put into the review process. The high rating that I achieved with this evaluation was not mine alone. This last year was a true challenge, but with teamwork and the goal to do our very best for Chatham, I'm honored to say that we all rose to the occasion. I couldn't be more proud of town staff, more appreciative of your leadership, and the patience and resiliency of our great community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. We appreciate it. If there's are there any further comments from the board before we move on? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. I am going to convene the Affordable Trust Fund Board of Trustees at this time. So I'll take a roll call of the board. Peter.
Present.
Corey.
Present.
Dean.
Present.
Jeff.
Present.
Megan Story.
Present.
Bruce Bean.
Present.
Okay, we have our board present. I would accept the motion to move into executive session by one of the trustees.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees go into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 23B, Number 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, taking, lease, or value of real property, parenthesis, private property acquisition for affordable/attainable housing, if such discussion may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the governmental body, with no return to open session.
Thank you, Dean. I will accept a second.
Second.
Okay, let's take a roll call. Dean.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Corey.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Bruce.
Aye.
Megan.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. We will not be returning. Good night, Chatham. We thank all the staff that was on the call tonight and those who had made public announcements earlier. So thank you very much. Good night, Chatham. Enjoy this beautiful May evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everybody.